what do I want us to talk about? I have pondered this issue for years. In fact, I made my last book, The Imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution. I made it available for free, and that's forever. Download it, share it, read it. Please read it. I made it free yesterday for a simple reason. I realized that if you must understand the depth of the mess we are in, which is the only time you might begin to understand your role in fixing it, you must know what the issues are. Everything I'm going to be saying to you this morning, you would find if you would read the imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution. So what I'm going to be doing this morning is essentially a condensation, an adumbration, a summarization of that book, drawing on current events that were largely predicted in the book that I have now made available to you for free. Some scallywag once said that if you want to hide knowledge from the black man, put it in a book. It pains me to say that they are right, but it is my hope that by the unrelenting efforts of some of us documenting these things, don't make any mistake about it. I'm not speaking just for you who is watching me in this generation. Malcolm X wasn't as conceited as I am. So when he was speaking, I believe in 1966, and he was speaking to the bullet or the ballot, he wasn't speaking understanding that the like of me would one day be referred to his work. I speak in the knowledge that your children's children will listen to what I have to say today. And they will find it resonating in their spirit, hopefully not from places of regret, because the truth never dies. I hope it's from a place of affirmation of the courage you guys found to eventually found a country, because you don't have one right now. Having given you the contextual basis for what I want to discuss this morning, let's now narrow it down to the specifics. Your PVC or your gun. What do I mean? I'll explain. Nigeria pretends to be a democracy. In its determination to keep up this pretense, this lie, it affords you votes. But it then do everything that it can, both institutionally as a state and through its several agents and agencies, including the ruling crowds and their enablers, to devalue the quality of that vote. It devalues it by disconnecting you from the issues, because the APC is the PDP, the PDP is the PP, poo, all the same. So because it does this to you, you become disconnected from the process and you tell yourself nothing will change, even by votes. And then they raised your hopes. 2014, 2015, when in the vapors of illusions, enabled by a corrupt press, a gullible, malleable, uninformed, politically ignorant, impoverished electorate, they sold you the illusions of a Buhari change. And you bought it, hook, line, and sinker, both the certificated idiots. I'm sorry to say, no insult intended, but that is an apt description of those who believed that a Buhari who left power 30 years before was somehow going to come back and get rid of the thieves who have supported him to gain power, and then he will do the things you, in your dreams, were imagining. Naira to dollar will be 1 for 1. They sold you illusions, and you bought it. You bought it because you were not victims. You're largely accomplices. And Buhari emerged. We are here 7 years later. 7 years later, we haven't learned anything. We've learned nothing 7 years later. People are still distracted by several illusions, as if personnel changes would save Nigeria. So we're talking again, go and get your PVC, go and get your PVC. Even I who didn't vote in the last 2 elections, I've been telling you, go and get your PVC. And yes, some of you have pointed to me the seeming contradiction in the position that I have taken. But it's a lot more nuanced than that. When I tell you to go get your PVC, I am saying to you, assert the last vestige of citizenship that they are obliged to have called to you. If Nigeria must continue to pretend to be a democracy, it will be because you carry a vote. As long as they still give you a vote, it continues to tell the world and you that it is a democracy. So I said to you, go get your PVC. So go get your PVC. I'm saying it to you not because I'm deluded enough to believe that your votes would count if you do not count. I will explain that in a bit. So I'm saying this so that those of you who think you are giving me some Columbus level discovery when you say to me that votes do not count. I know the votes do not count normally in Nigeria. But I'm saying, let's flip the game. There is a way we can flip this game. I've talked about it and I'll come to it, but I don't wish to be derailed. Now, why do I say get your PVC? And then of what use is it if I have also equally admitted that it is of no consequence in the Nigerian space? I say get your PVC because getting your PVC means that you've taken a position one way or the other. Because the other way, which is the gun, and which I'll come to shortly, would prevail if the first do not. What is the gun? If you live in a society where injustice is systemic, planned into the body fabric of the state, where the law do not rule, where it is impunity that governs the exertions of men, a place like Nigeria, where an Abba Kyari is the law, he has the capacity to execute with impunity. He has the capacity to expropriate the properties of those he had labeled criminals. He administers impunity on behalf of the government and on behalf of the privileged members of the society. When you live in that kind of society where the law does not rule, and it is evident that there is no citizenship, it is quite evident and clear that the only way you get your right is by exertion of violence. What then happens is that you legitimize violence, which is why I said your PVC or your gun. Now, why is it inevitable that there might be guns or that there will be guns. I will explain. Nigeria is currently in the grip of a Fulanist agenda. President Buhari has been unapologetic about what agenda has ruled this country under his regime. No, he has no apologies for anybody. All you have to do is look at the security architecture of Nigeria. All you have to do is look at the persons persecuted as terrorists and those to whom impunity have been extended. Look to the reason why the Nigerian state has failed woefully in the whole of the Northwest and the Northeast. How the bandits, quote and unquote, have come to rule territories in Nigeria. Let me share one story with you. And this is a true story. I'm sure I can back this up because it's a true account that I read. So there is this farming community, I think somewhere in Isiekiti. So I'm not too sure, but they plant rice. So this farmer narrated our experience. What was our experience? They've had a Fulani settlement in the village for ages, for decades. The Fulanis will come after the planting season and they will graze on, after the harvest, they will graze on whatever was left. The cattle will graze on it. They will pay, sometimes they pay the farmers. Yes, they pay the farmer, but it was a trade-off. As the cattle were grazing in the rice paddies that had become vacant, now I believe it will be closer to the dry season when they were not planting. Anyway, they've harvested. So the cattle will graze, they will drop their crop, which fertilizes the field. So it was a symbiotic relationship. These Fulanis had settled there for years. Sometimes they will go, sometimes they will come back, but they were known. And then some years ago, probably this was before Buhari came to power, just before, I think around 2013, 2014, these Fulanis came to this farmer and told this farmer, oh, they were leaving. And the farmer asked, why are you leaving? He said, no, these new Fulanis that are coming into this area, they mean trouble. So these Fulanis who were always there, they left. And this new crop of Fulanis, they didn't speak English. They spoke nothing but Fufude and French. And these ones were more violent. They were observing of no laws, respectful of no culture. But they acted with impunity because nobody would dare to touch them. And then the Buhari years came, and these people became more brazen. And when they were arrested, they would be released. But the instructive thing to note is that the native Fulanis left. These native Fulanis up and down the length of Nigeria are as much victims of what we're dealing with today, as some of them are collaborators, as the people in government are facilitators. A law, I believe, has been recently passed, the Indigenization Act or whatever they call it. Go and read that law well. You will understand the consequences. What is happening is that people are reacting to the manifest injustice in this space. And the impotence they feel about the powers of their vote, the more they have embraced the extreme of secession, because it seems and appears to be the only viable option out of this obvious system of injustice. The more we have talked about the need to restructure Nigeria, the more violently the state has shut down any such demand. It is instructive to note that restructuring, as far as the state is concerned, can only be done by the National Assembly, which we have all continually labeled illegitimate. It is legal, but we've called it illegitimate, and we have a basis for calling it illegitimate. The legitimacy of any association is found in the voluntary submission of members of such association to the formation and sustenance of that association. It is not by accident that it was only at the point of agreement on the principle of federalism in 1953 that Nigeria came into existence as one. Let me not confuse you. Let me be clear. Before it was generally agreed by Awolowo, who propounded it, who proposed it, and who explained it, Zik wanted a unitary system. And everybody who suggested federalism were considered Pakistanis. Those were the terms. Secessionists, separatists. But even the Sardauna was not happy with the idea of a unitary system because he feared Igbo domination. The fear of domination by any side of Nigeria was what led to the Federalist consensus. And that was how come federalism was the bedrock of the Nigeria that was voluntarily entered at independence. The destruction of that Federalist route has led to the domination of Nigeria by a single hegemony. That single hegemony is the one that has assured that there can be no peace because of its refusal to give up what it has acquired illegitimately. That acquisition is kept in the subversion of the will of the people. Those of us who now say to you, get your PVC. At this point in time, we're saying so because we know that it is the halfway point between you deciding to exercise your will as the citizens that they pretend that you have, or you sitting by as a victim whilst continuing to legitimize the grievances of those who demand separation. So I'm saying to you, your PVC or your gun, get your PVC. Get it in the understanding that it is when you vote for the change that you desire, that you believe Nigeria needs urgently. You getting your PVC and then moving away from ethnicity, moving away from religion, move away from all of those and deal with the substance of the issue. What are the issues? I'll tell you. One, Nigeria must be restructured. Must. All this talk about Southern President, yes, Southern President as a matter of equitable justice. But Southern President who is talking restructuring, that I believe is an Igbo president, not just talking restructuring, have a program for restructuring. Connect us to the process. If they do not connect us, let us connect ourselves by first of all acquiring our PVC, which means that we have diluted the voters' base. Let's add at least about 5 million, 10 million, 20 million to the voters register. Then issues become easier to canvass in the midst of that, because let's deal with that PVC. The system wants you to believe that it's useless. Even we have talked it down and labeled it useless. I'm guilty of that. But is it really useless? If it were to be so useless, why are they paying you to vote one way or the other? Why are they paying? Why are they bringing thugs to disrupt the electoral process? Why? Why do they care to share gari, rice, beans, akara, and all of that to you? Why are they playing the drama that you see during election season? Why are they frying akara? Why are they eating boli with you? Because they know that for them to be able to sustain the illusion of democracy, they must connect you somehow. But the way they connect you, they want to be able to control the connection. That is why they are inducing you with one thing or the other, or they are helping you to believe that your vote is useless. The vote is only as useless as you make it. The vote is only as useless as you make it. If 20 million of you would dare to either find your voter's card that you had abandoned and considered useless, because I know several of us did not vote. So it's not just about adding numbers to the voters' roll. It's about connecting you sufficiently to the issues as to enable you to decide that I want a change. A lot of you have asked me, so who should we vote for? They are certainly not voting me. I'm not running. So let's get that into our own heads first. But here is what you are going to be voting. We can, if we mobilize ourselves sufficiently around the issue, become a formidable voting bloc that any political actor will find it possible to ignore. Who are the political actors this time around? Those interested in advancing agenda and those interested in amassing wealth. Those are the two classes of political actors that are dominant in our space. Those interested in advancing agenda, they are largely coalesced around a Fulani Islamist agenda. That is the dominant agenda that is in the political space in Nigeria. This dominant agenda already has a head start on everybody else. It's got a constitution that is founded on its desires. Let's call it a virus. It's the virus of feudalism. The virus of feudalism is rooted in feudal cultures. There were two in Nigeria, two feudal cultures, the Fulani hegemony and the Kanem Borno hegemony. The two were always feudal in their outlook. And these were the two that the British, coming from a feudal background that morphed into monarchy, were familiar with and found easy to work with. That explains why indirect rule was a resounding success in northern Nigeria, because that was the dominant hegemony in the space. I've explained this ad nauseum in the imperatives. So this hegemony that has a constitution standing behind it has spread. What does it? It's not really about a tribe, it's about a class. When you look at it in terms of tribe, you miss the point. It is distractive when you begin to think of it as a tribal thing. It is a class thing. The Fulani feudal system was always constructed to favor the overlord. Those are the emirs, the district heads, and all of those. It favors them. But the peasantry required to maintain the feudal order were equally allowed impunities in the areas where these hegemonies exerted. So you find that by the time we started this current experiment at democracy, the first set, especially in the Southwest, were connected to the people and found validity for their position in the people. But by the time the second set were coming, that was when the Obasanjo moonslide happened in 2003. They knew already that the will of the people was unrequired in keeping them in office. So what you found is that the occupants of political office became disconnected from the people, but connected to the system that maintains their presence in power. This disconnect meant that very quickly, those who were subservient to federal might, which is essentially centralized control, became the ones that were preferred in the states generally. So the virus of feudalism quickly jumped from the northwest, the northeast. It jumped all over Nigeria until today, where when you listen to my brothers, especially my Biafran brothers, demanding separation from Nigeria, when you distill the argument, because you cannot deny the grievances, what you hear is, yes, we are not ruled by Fulani. Our governors are Igbos as well, but they are slaves of the Fulani. And I ask myself, so if these your governors are slaves, quote and unquote, of the Fulani, what about the people in the houses of assembly? What about your House of Reps members? What about your senators? What they are missing is that as imperfect as this fraudulent constitution is, as fraudulent as the electoral process might be prone, our own disconnect and refusal to take responsibility for the choices we make, where we allow ourselves to focus solely on PDP or APC or AD as the, no, AC as the case was, where we've allowed ourselves to embrace this bipolarity of political choices, it has validated a fraud. Why aren't we asking, instead of asking who to vote for, why aren't we asking what to vote for? Why is it beyond our ken to, in the knowledge of what we know, which is that, okay, I did say that I was going to take my time this morning, so let me take my time in that direction to explain it. So you've got a feudalized democracy where the people are unconnected to the system because they don't expect changes from the system, where the rulers are disconnected from the people because they also don't believe themselves responsible to the people. And yet, a madman like me is telling you, go get your PVC. I'm telling you, get your PVC because your PVC is the alternative to the gun. The human spirit rebels against injustice. It's instinctive. If you unjustly whoop a child, that child will probably weep and cry for much longer than he or she would have cried if there was good reason for the punishment inflicted. So the human spirit instinctively and reflexively rebels against injustice. When the justice system has also now denied justice consistently, it legitimizes any form of resistance. So those of us who keep telling you the gun is silly, yeah, we'll keep saying so because we believe it to be so and we know it to be so. But by the time the only recourse that is left to those who will not accept injustice is to take up arms against the oppressive system, anything we have to say becomes nothing but Dogon Turinchi. So you can speak to the illegality of the demand of the secessionists, or you cannot deny the legitimacy of the grievances. There are several legitimate grievances in Nigeria fueling the conflicts that have overtaken our land. It has manifested in several ways. It's shown up as religion because people have been religiously brainwashed. But it is found in the legitimacy of the grievances. The banditry that you speak to in the north is a function of social factors: hunger, desertification, injustice, impunity, name it. They are reacting. It's a form of revolution as well. It's just uninformed. But it is the rich, the perceived to be privileged, who are the first line victims of the monsters they have created. And then they run away. And then they leave the poor peasantry to be dealing with what they are now glibly calling banditry. It is in the impunity that has been allowed to thrive that this madness has thrived. But it's gone global in Nigeria. If you're talking to banditry, what are you going to say about the MC mushroom pickings of Lagos? What are you going to say about the Tokyo and Auxiliary in Oyo State? And I'm sure there are several in other parts of Nigeria. The state allows impunity because it is itself unanchored to law. If we don't change the game by connecting ourselves to the issues, getting our PVC, and then determining that we will do different this time around, we will look beyond personnel changes. You're talking to me in Lagos about wanting to be my governor. What are you going to do about these toll gates? What are you going to do about water? What are you going to do about schools? There is a need for massive reconstruction of the public school systems. Transparently, not these, you spend 20 million, you budget 200 million. Transparent. Massive reconstruction. Primary school education. The educational system in this state has collapsed. It's become privatized almost completely. They'll deny it, as they always have, but it doesn't change the truth. Even your megads, their children go to private schools now. Nobody, how many people can visit our public hospitals? How many? Compare the population and the availability. So we have to move beyond persons. Let's vote issues. This can't be a one-day conversation. It's impossible. It is an ongoing conversation. And as I have said, starting out, the imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution is available for free download. I've posted this on all my platforms. It's a Google document. Feel free to share it amongst yourselves. It's a more elegant explanation of pretty much the same thing I've tried to explain to you. And it probably will not be ranting because I was forced to consider my thoughts before putting them down. I'll suggest you download it. Find the time to read it. You cannot be disconnected from what is coming, because if you do not connect yourself by your PVC, you will be connected by the gods. There can be no peace in the absence of justice. It's just not in human nature. It is simply not in human nature for there to be peace in the absence of justice. And justice is the one thing that you will not find in Nigeria. So, if you want to avoid having to grab that gun, grab your PVC. It's not a silver bullet. It's not the cure-all. But it connects you to the process. It makes it impossible for your will to be discounted. Anybody who would even rig, you have to be popular to be rigged for. Express your will. Please. I plead with you. We can't just fold our hands and say there is nothing we can do. For our children's sake, please. Connect. A lot of you have this PVC. You've tossed it aside. I tossed mine aside since I last used it in 2011. But I still have it, and I intend to use it. Even if it proves to be impotent, I know I did my bit. If I have to pick up a gun, I know I've done my best to avoid picking up one. My conscience absolves me. Would your own conscience absolve you? Please, reconnect yourself. Your votes are not useless. It is what they would prefer that you believe, but it's a lie. If it were to be useless, why are they buying it? If you do not buy the tickets, you cannot win the lottery. If you doubt the potency of your vote, go and find out how easy it is to register to vote. They've made it difficult because they recognize the dangers. Please, consider the fact that you don't really need to pay for a PVC, but you'll be needing to pay for guns and bullets. Get